Thank you for joining the Sharpest College Football Podcast. This is our Week 11 review. I am BuckMetrics. Robert Martin is on assignment, so graciously filling in for him is our guy Isaiah Walker. Isaiah, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Buck. Real excited to be here. Get to fill in for Robert while he's off on his super secret mission.
Exactly, yes. Just so you know, Isaiah, we might be a little USC heavy this week, so you not only have permission, but I'm actually asking you to push back if it gets to be a bit much. Can you do that for us?
I think I can manage it. A little bit of Lincoln Riley pushback.
Okay, appreciate that. If you are new, this is our glossary. Go ahead and do a screen grab of it, save it where you keep all of your college football work. And if you are not new and returning, as you know by now, you are, by definition, brilliant. And with that, we will go to our Week 11 takeaways. That Iowa game after the crazy early Indiana Penn State game, which was just, we all needed a smoke break after that. And then we get this Oregon and Iowa game was just the perfect response to that. It was like the first half was just an intermezzo. It was just very grindy and just, okay, I can really catch my breath here. And it pretty much exactly what we expected, even with Oregon taking, of course, the very common 2-0 lead. At the end, Oregon pulls it out. I just want to point out something here as I get my laser pointer. Thank you very much. Look, these numbers for Dante Moore, 24 Apex, not great numbers. You know what? I don't care. I'm tossing that. You come out of that venue in November with a win, good on you. I don't give a crap how you do it. And I want to, much to my chagrin, I want to point out that the three best pass defenses in all of FBS by my metrics play in the Big Ten. And my Trojans get to play all three. But you just beat number 2 in the whole country here. So, hey, a win's a win. Ugly, I don't care. If you beat Rutgers 18-16, we have to talk. I'm fine with this. This is gutsy. It looked a little grim. And for those of us who had the under here, that 2-point conversion after the touchdown that was called out, that was a big moment for some of us.
Yeah, I said it at the time. I was like, this is the return of the Big Ten West. You can try as much as you want, but you just can't kill it. And this is what happens when teams go to Iowa, and I'll cover that a little bit later, actually. But I think this is a great win for Oregon. It's not gonna jump out. It's not going to make any of the box score watchers impressed. But I think for those of us who respect what Iowa is and respect what that defense is and that venue is, this is something where you could say, you know what, Oregon came off that bad game against Wisconsin at home, and they could have very easily just lost this game. And then now what? Now you're not taken seriously at all. And you know what? It wasn't pretty, but they found a way, which is the same thing that what Indiana haters are trying to do on Indiana and be like, oh, they had to win last second. I don't care. Good teams find a way to do it.
Yeah, that's still not an easy place to play.
You know what? A lot of good teams did not find a way to win this week.
Exactly. Yes. You know, the other thing, too, about Oregon, who did he have to pass the ball to? Kenyon Sadiq was out, DeCorian Moore was out, and then Gary Bryant Jr. got hurt. It was basically, I don't know, not a lot to throw to, and yet he made that. Boy, that one throw was just ridiculous, just right above the guy's hand. Although I gotta wonder, two things left me wondering here. Why were they passing when they had the field goal wrapped up? I didn't get that at all.
I couldn't understand it either once they got into range. Now, I know they had some concerns with the kicker, with Sappington, but he had already hit earlier in the game, and this was not kicking from the 50-yard line. This was well within his range. Even with the weather, that was a little weird to me because, boy, if there is, like, lots of teams can find a way to Mario it late when the game should be over. But if there's one team that you really don't want to tempt with a pass, I think it would be the Iowa defense.
Yeah, exactly. That's what the crazy thing was. It was, and their last pass was like downfield towards the end zone. So try a screen or something here, guys. Something a little more safe than that. But it worked out. The other thing interesting, too, is I've had, and this is before this week, these ratings here, I've had Oregon just the top pass defense for pretty much the whole, since I've had Apex Plus, enough numbers for Apex Plus. A couple of weird just kind of breakdowns in the passing game, which can't do that when you play USC in a couple weeks. I'll just say that, because, I don't know. Iowa sends one guy out in the pattern. You got to cover him. USC does more than one guy in the pattern. So, yeah, really good game, though, and just an absolute just masterpiece after the Penn State game, which was a whole different kettle of fish. So, all right, here's where you need to maybe push back a little bit. I'm using some... All right, let me just take it a step back. One of the big crimes of metrics and stats is using arbitrary endpoints. I'm going by Big Ten records for every team, or the top teams, the teams with the best Big Ten record, from November 15th forward. So it seems arbitrary, but number one, it's one full calendar year now, basically. Number two, that's when Jaden Mayava took over. And I bring this up because, first of all, I want to point out that only two programs have beaten Jaden Mayava so far at USC, and that would be Notre Dame and Illinois. Not the bearing that was, I think, would be on everybody's bingo card, but it is what it is. We've got a whole year here, and USC is basically tied for first in this last calendar year against some pretty good teams. And I'm bringing this up for a couple of reasons. Number one, we need to change the narrative, or we need to specify the narrative. And the narrative of it, look, it's not working out for USC in the Big Ten. We need to be more specific and say it did not work out for USC with Miller Moss playing for Lincoln Riley in the Big Ten. They're a different team now. You might remember when we did the Big Ten preview, I said, look, if I just take USC under Mayava as a separate team last year, I had them as the fifth best offense. I thought that may be aggressive, and they've been like one or two pretty much the whole season here. I also want to point out on this list right here, this is my stab, and there's some judgment here as to where you want to put the top three. That could be a whole hour podcast, how you're going to sort those guys out. But these are Lincoln Riley's quarterbacks. And number one, you've got, and this is not to crap on the guy, Miller Moss just wasn't a good fit, and he came with a property, if you will. Just, it was the backyard that didn't wind up to be a good fit for the family. So I bring that up because that's really the big first impression we have here. And I also bring that up because I think you can't put Jaden Mayava ahead of any of these other four quarterbacks I bring that up because, guys, this is with a below average Lincoln Riley quarterback. It's not like this is an aberration that's going to regress. If this regresses going forward, it might be upward on the offense. Look, I'm not saying, hey, USC is the best team. They're clearly not. I'm saying that I think your top two teams, Indiana and Ohio State, Oregon's kind of on the straddle there of basically, they did it last year, so I guess you have to include them. They can beat everybody. USC's not in the they can beat everybody. USC and I think Michigan are definitely in that other class if they can beat anybody. And I think they're at that point now. That offense, I'll put it this way. If I'm another program and I'm not named Ohio State, I'm concerned about the progress that USC is making, just to use the idiot's guide to game theory here. So I don't know if they'll ever win the Big Ten. But you know what? That's not the prize now. The prize is just to make the playoff at this point. And frankly, I don't even want to make the Big Ten title game anyways because I don't want to play an extra game. I don't know if USC's arrived, but they need to be noticed at this point as a Big Ten team.
Yeah, what was the goal for USC at this point in Lincoln Riley's tenure? Because I think different people have different expectations of what they want to be. Like, I think what you've asked from your program is very clear here, right? We're playing for the playoff. I don't necessarily care if they win a Big Ten championship because that's not really the prize anymore. The prize is to get one of those 12 spots, and then anything can happen once you get to that spot. And so I think the way you described it there, like, where is USC now? Yeah, I think putting them in terms of a post-Harbaugh Michigan is about where they are, right? Like, they are still pretty clearly, at least to me, a tier below the Ohio State, the Indiana kind of team. But they are in a position where I don't have to go into a game and just say, yeah, I'm writing them off. They're just not going to win this game. And I think that's good progress, right? Because for such a long time, it was like Lincoln Riley's just not going to get this done. The defense is too bad. It's not, like, all this good quarterback talent he has is getting wasted by how bad his defense is. You know what? The defense is not elite, but it has gotten better. And it has gotten to the point where he doesn't need Caleb Williams running the offense anymore for this to be sustainable. Now, I think if you want to take the glass half empty approach, I'm trying to give both sides.
Yeah, right? Please, go ahead.
What's the glass half empty approach? What has USC done since he's taken? Who are the teams that they have beat? Nebraska, UCLA, and they got the bowl win over Texas A&M, and then Purdue, Michigan State, Nebraska, Northwestern, Michigan. Michigan won good. But outside of that's a lot of bum slaying. The Nebraska win's actually, I think the Nebraska win will age well because it was on the road too.
On the road, yeah, I think that makes a difference.
Yeah.
And that kind of I don't know if it dispels, but it goes against the narrative that's been building up.
Yeah. So, yeah, because I think had this been a last year's USC team where I was not convinced that the physicality was there, where I certainly was not going to trust Lincoln Riley to run the football, I would have expected them to go into Nebraska and just get manhandled. And so I think what's interesting about USC is the next two games on the schedule. Iowa at home, another team that you're going to have to outtrench. You see what they just did to Oregon, even on the road. Like the Iowa defense does travel. Maybe their offense won't, but that defense will travel.
That's not really selling the game, but go on. Yes.
So you know what you're going to get. But again, Lincoln, this team's ability to play that kind of game is new. It's something that's been developed. And then you get that big shot against Oregon. We look at Oregon, hey, they did survive that Iowa game, and that's impressive. But this Oregon team can be beaten. I think they've shown they absolutely can be beaten. Now, going into Autzen is tough. Yep. That's a hard thing to do, but you can get both of these games, and boy, does that change. You get both of those games, and then assuming you don't lose to UCLA, then you're in the playoff, right?
It becomes interesting too if it's 2-loss USC versus 2-loss Oregon.
Yeah.
Then it's a free for all.
I think the building blocks have clearly been laid here. There is a foundation to win games and to put yourself in position for the ultimate goal of making the playoff. And I think they still need to find, if they want to take one more step up right now, they're in a place where I can say, I think next year I can see them making the playoff. Now, here's the question. Can I see them winning a game? I think that's where I still want to see a little bit more from them. Can we see them in Big Ten play pick off a team like an Oregon, a Indiana, Ohio State, or give us like that, that's it. Like, that's that performance that I've been waiting to see, to where they go into the playoff and they play a team like, I don't know, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and I'd be like, you know what? I'm not counting them out there.
Into that point, I think this year especially, it's informative in that if you can win in Autzen, you can win a playoff game. I think that's how the math works.
Absolutely.
And going back to the earlier discussion about Oregon, they definitely got like their Big Ten West tattoos. They got beaten into the gang. And this USC team's just a totally different thing, even though they have one loss both over that same time period. It's like you dropped in a really good Oklahoma team with like their best defense, which is average by Big Ten standards, and say, hey, this is fun. Let's see how far this goes.
And also the other thing that I think, the positive side of the coin too, like we can mention the schedule and say, okay, they really haven't gotten a signature win unless you consider Michigan being the signature win. But what have they not done this year? They haven't lost to Minnesota. They haven't lost to Maryland. Let's go back to early September. Were you not perfectly ready for this team to go to Purdue and lay an egg?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Literally. It's a time zone loss.
So look, hey, you know what? You can only control what you can control. And the Illinois loss was dumb. It was really dumb, but it wasn't a bad loss. The Notre Dame loss is clearly not a bad loss. So, like, this team has not fallen on their face to October, Maryland. I think that is a positive in itself, because if you learn to build, like, that winning culture and you don't go into games with the mindset of, oh, this is where we screw it up, that does a lot for a program.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good point. That's where you get the overachievement of your metrics, too, is you win those games that are 50-50 games. All right, I'm going to take over the horrible artwork of AI that makes Robert's sharpest firing range here. I just want to point out that I don't remember at any point in time, just assuming that none of these guys, Jim Knowles, Blake Baker, DJ Durkin, and Tony White, are retained, which I don't see happening. The only one that I think would be maybe Baker, because he's got like the biggest contract, and LSU's just different, where it does seem like you commit to the school, not the coach. But you've got
LSU's a whole nother issue too with the hiring.
Yeah. You're gonna pretend that Auburn isn't, though? The issue with Auburn is everything.
Exactly.
But I don't remember already at this point seeing all these good defensive coordinators that are just gonna be most likely free agents here. And I just think of, and here's where it gets tricky, just trying to figure out, like, oh, this could be great because of X, Y. My first thought would have been, if you're like a Bob Chesney, okay, I'm making a big step up. I need a guy with like serious chops. If I can just lock up this guy to be my defensive coordinator, I'm so far ahead of so many new coaches making that jump from G5 to P2, let's say. Here's where it gets a problem is like all these guys are coming from big programs. It's you think, wow, in theory, God, Jim Knowles would be so good at Penn State. He's there now. I don't know if they want him back, just for a fresh start. But it, I'm trying to think of who really needs, who's just really just horrible on one side of the ball. So maybe like I don't know. Would DJ Durkin go to maybe for the right coach to Arkansas? They're the most one-sided team, and that they break my metrics every freaking week.
I think what's really interesting here is this. In my mind, this is a consequence that has not been talked about as much with the new NIL era and the amount of money that is in college football now. Because everybody wants to talk about the paying the players, the buying the rosters, the transfer portal, et cetera, et cetera. But what we've actually done is we put so much more pressure on these coaches, right? Because you're not only trying to win, but you're spending people's money to do it. You got how much money at Penn State, you got how much money at Auburn and LSU to win these games, and you fall flat. And so now schools, they're even more likely, in my mind, to want to fire coaches because there's so much more at stake than just the wins. Like you have to use this money effectively. And I think the Penn State thing, that just opened the floodgates because I didn't I'm sorry. There was no work. As much as we wanted to crap on James Franklin in the preseason, we did. And as many situations that we discussed of it falling apart at Penn State this year, just from like their expectations not being met and then it spirals, not one of us implied that James Franklin was getting fired. Yeah. And even today, I think I get why you did it, but I think there are about 8 out of 10 ways that you get worse because of this, and only about 2 that you break even or get better.
Yeah.
And
well said.
I think that just opened the floodgates. Right now, all of these programs are like, oh, we lost the game, better fire the coach. Oh, we lost the game, we better fire the coach. And now you've got all of these interim coaches who were not to be put in this position, but they are because the coach got fired. So, yeah, I just don't know how schools are going to adjust this because to me, all of these hires too, or all these interim guys, it's just, I don't think you fire James Franklin just to promote the DC. I don't think you fire Brian Kelly just to promote the DC. It doesn't make any sense.
No.
And with how high of hopes we had for Jim Knowles coming in, for how gettable this defense has been, you can't keep him.
It depends on how. I'll put it this way. Oklahoma State, it took a year. Ohio State, it took a year. This is the same thing. I think
I'm just
James
concerned.
Franklin didn't understand he was on the clock that much.
I'm just concerned with, I guess, if I were to tell you what my concern with Jim Knowles would be, Ohio State's defense looked pretty pedestrian last year until the playoffs when, I don't know, maybe the lunatic French doxing the coach just made everybody decide to try. I don't know. Then he coached 4 incredible games in the playoffs, like 4 of the most dominant games you'll ever see. But then the other guys, again, I think at a place like LSU with both the expectations of the program, even with what they're paying him, nobody wants to talk about it, but the politics of hiring a new coach, that's there. I don't know. I think the same thing exists in Florida with Florida State. It certainly exists at Florida, so I don't know about Florida State. And then I don't know Auburn. DJ Durkin is just a terrible human being, so do you really want that?
Let's just say I can't see DJ Durkin like landing at Northwestern or something like that. Is that fair?
No, but if you were to say Arkansas, I could see that.
Yeah.
To be at a school where it just means more.
Yep. Yeah, I've said. Yeah. New Stanford coach, not good. And actually, DJ Durkin coached at Stanford way back when. He coached under Harbaugh.
You can see it. I don't know where Stanford's going to go, if they're just going to pull Frank Reich from the ashes again, or if you believe in the betting markets, you can get 9-cent shares for Deion Sanders.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, I'll pass on that. Thank you very much. So, yeah, this is going to be most seasons. The head coaching off carousel is one thing, but the defensive coordinators are going to be really something. really something to keep your eye on. All right. Time to be college football Karens, where we say, I want to talk to whomever. I got Stephen Godfrey he's got 3 different podcasts now. Before the season, he said, Hawaii's going to fire Timmy Chang. There's just no doubt about it. Like, it was a given fact, which is just silly. You can't say that before the season, and this is exactly why. Hawaii's one game out of making the conference title game. By the way, they just beat one of the teams that's ahead of them. So I guess in theory, it's getting, what do they say? It's getting late early. This is different. All the conferences have this issue where it's getting late but not early enough. Did I say that right? Because we're gonna be, I think every conference is gonna have a tiebreaker, and this is one of them here. But Hawaii's basically say a half game out of the conference title game. I'm not gonna say I liked Hawaii this year, not enough to bet them, but I did make a case for them. They did have last year. They had the new quarterback that actually had really good numbers against horrible teams. Newsflash: there's a lot of horrible teams in the Mountain West, so he just rinsed and repeated on that. But it's just silly just to say this guy's gone before the season. I don't care how poor your program is. Believe me, if your program is that poor, they're looking for every reason to keep the guy, especially this guy who's like a native son. So do better than that, Godfrey.
It's what? 2 things deal in absolute: Sith and Stu Mandel from The Athletic. There you go.
All right. You've got, it appears like a laundry list of people you want to speak to here.
Oh, no. This is one game. I just want to speak to Jed Fish here. I want to ask, because we were all so high on Washington in the preseason time. We really liked this team to be a significant threat in the Big Ten and a playoff dark horse contender. And where did we end up? We ended up with a loss in Madison to a Wisconsin team which has not, forget when, they did not lead at any single point in a game since October 4th. They were shut out 37-0 to Iowa. They were shut out to Ohio State, and they scored 7 points against Oregon. This man up here, number 91, Sean West, was the leading passer for the Wisconsin Badgers against your ranked Washington Huskies. He's a punter.
Yes.
And let's just say, oh, that's okay. Like, the punter was the leading passer, but that clearly means they just ran the ball. Take a look at the leading rusher. He had 73 yards. This breaks my brain. Like, how is this physically? This Washington team cannot play on the road.
That's it. Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible how inept they are on the road. And that's a problem because obviously playoffs are over, any like significant postseason hopes are over here. Now we're just talking about your win total. Hey, if you want to beat your win total, you have to win at UCLA. Do better, Jed Fish. Which, by the way, some of these reports that are coming out now that he's got interest in being the head coach at UCLA. He's looking for an exit plan. These are not new rumors. These rumors were flying around last year too, and in the past too. I don't know, man. I look at that kind of performance because it was giving me the same vibes that like Luke Fickell was giving me in so many of these games, where it's like, boy, this guy is coaching like he is out the door. Now Wisconsin put a crush on that and said, no, he's actually not out the door.
Yeah.
But Jed Fish, I need you to do better here because I'm getting really embarrassed for putting stock in you in the preseason.
I couldn't agree more. It doesn't make sense because they were more competent than USC last year and they caught the USC bug or adopted the USC personality. Although the defense is still pretty solid under your guy, Walters.
Yeah. And hey, look, it's like they're not even losing games now. Last year they just lost games in the dumbest possible ways. And I could pass that off and say, oh, hey, look, they lost some dumb games in dumb ways, but you can figure that out. No, this year they're just losing games. Like, it's not even a fluke. This game was not a fluke. Like, it's not that hard. Clearly, it's not that hard to beat Wisconsin, but you could not figure out how to do it.
Yes. It's after seeing this, I'll put it this way, the last few weeks have made him, I think, pretty much not a factor for the Florida job. I think after what they've gone through, this would be an extremely hard sell. So I want to talk for a minute about the UCLA thing. Would UCLA probably be happy to have him? Yeah, of course. Here's the problem that I see. UCLA's athletic department has racked up like $200 million deficit in the last 4 years. I don't know if you've caught this. They apparently have already spent the money that they're going to get from private equity to buy their way out of the Rose Bowl contract.
Yeah, they go to
Oh.
SoFi. So they can play. They can move from an empty little stadium to an empty big stadium. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's beautiful aerial shots of the freeway at SoFi. I used to work right by there. I know.
Yeah, I hear that if you get bored of watching the game, you can watch Plains Land.
Yes, you can. Literally, you can. So I don't know where UCLA would get the money because this is the classic. They would have to buy him out of his Washington contract, and they would have to pay him and his staff and all that stuff. So I don't know. It's got to be killing. Go ahead.
I wouldn't put my money on Jed Fish going there. I would put my money on another DOA Big Ten coach, but it's not Jed Fish.
Really? You want to share this? Who's the head coach?
The honorable gentleman who's a 7.5-point home underdog to 0-6 Penn State.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah, I could. Yeah, and I don't think I don't think Washington wants to fire Fish, although there's a lot of fans. I think you might see a reprise of the Calipari to Arkansas thing with Smith, where they're like, "Look, I don't like you, you don't like me. Let's just tear up the contract and get out of my house. And good luck. Yeah. And we look forward to kicking your ass when you come back here in 2 years or whatever." I think that's kind of how that goes. That's a pretty good call by you. Didn't even think about that. Although I would say good luck to Martin Jarbon selling that to the UCLA fans, but you could probably just have them meet at a local Starbucks and convince them all.
It's okay. I'll just have Nick Cronin. I'll tell them that they're bad fans and they don't deserve anything.
Yes. Mick Cronin is a whole podcast by himself. I love the guy. He's great. But if I was a sports writer today, I would just say I'm just following him forever. I would never run out of stuff. All right. Victory laps. I had a pretty solid Friday. Made a case for Tulane moneyline as a 6.5-point dog. They win straight up. And I was vociferous that USC was going to win, cover the 15, which they did after a couple of scary moments. Jaden Mayava just, I don't know about the interception.
Didn't you hear that that one doesn't count because they had to cheat? They had to have two punters.
Yes, okay, there was that too. Yes.
Great game.
I don't know when it was just a penalty became cheating. Yeah, it should have been a penalty, sure.
The obsession over that one is killing me. I had to bring it up.
Yeah. Some shaky moments in the first half, though. I think that was the first pick that Mayava's thrown that wasn't in the third quarter, really. But yeah. And there was one more that I had that I liked too, but I don't know. That's enough of me bragging. Nobody wants to hear that anyways. Instead, they want to hear you talk about...
Yeah, you know what? Okay, here's the thing about this one. On Island Time, you asked me, is there something to watch in this game about this line? Because it was a 6-point line. And you were like, nothing about this line makes sense. It cannot be just as simple as night game at Kinnick. Buck, I am here to tell you.
Yes.
Sometimes it is just as simple as a night game at Kinnick when the weather is bad. This is something that every single Big Ten fan has experienced, and it does not make a hair of sense how Iowa does it, why they do it, and why it is so consistent. Why do teams suddenly forget how to field punts? Why do teams suddenly forget how to just move the football in completely normal ways? Why is Dan Lanning passing when he's in field goal range? Again, this venue just does not make sense to me, and that is exactly the way Kirk Ferentz likes it. So I will take the victory lap on Iowa covering this for no other reason than it was a Kinnick night game.
Very fair. And you know what? I'm 56, and this is the first time I've ever thought this in my 56 years. And I want your opinion on this. Maybe he's going to retire this year, maybe not. I don't think there's a tougher job in all of football to fill than following this guy.
Oh, I agree. Look, you can say whatever you want about them never quite being. Again, they're like at the USC's getting past it now a little bit, but it's the same level, right? Now, Iowa's just been there for the past 23 years, and there's both good and bad to that. Right? You ask me where my program is right now, would I like 8 wins a year, even if they're boring, even if they're not interesting, and even if you don't really have a prayer again to actually break into the top tier? Gosh, I would take the Kirk Ferentz resume in a heartbeat.
Yep.
But I think what you're going to see when Kirk Ferentz retires and what's so challenging, it's essentially what Luke Fickell has botched so badly at Wisconsin.
Yep, exactly.
If a coach comes into Iowa and says, hey, we're going to start passing the ball now, I'm just going to write them off right away. You can't go into these programs that are so thoroughly identified with a style of football. And against Iowa, too, you're not going to recruit USC wide receivers to Iowa. You're going to recruit tight ends. You're going to recruit running backs. You're going to recruit punters. Yeah, this is going to be a really tough act to follow. And I wish the Iowa administration, but I also have a feeling that knowing Cook Friends, he's going to be the senator running for their ninth term in office or something, which, by the way, Iowa has. So there you go.
Yes.
Everything's done in Iowa.
We joke about how old the Ferentz is. Hey, meet Chuck Grassley. He's a spring chicken compared to Chuck Grassley here.
Yeah.
You made a great point, and you think about in the case like this where it's so specific. It's like, do they hand it off to Phil Parker? Maybe. I don't think anybody's clamoring for Tim Lester get the job. And I don't know, call me crazy. I don't think a lot of people want to see Brian Ferentz return as head coach. How about this? You hit on it a little bit opaquely. He's 64 years old, I think I just looked up. Let me see, just make sure. Or 59. He's 59. He looks 64. How about Paul Christ to take over here?
I've heard that name. Yeah, I have actually. Not necessarily not fully in terms of Iowa, but I've heard it thrown around in a couple of programs similar to this. And honestly, I don't think it would be a terrible hire if that's what they decided to go, because what did Paul Christ do at Wisconsin? It's the same exact thing. Run the football, and most importantly, understand the culture of the program that you are working with. Now, that ended up working against when Chris, for other reasons, when he couldn't quite adapt Wisconsin into what college football has become now, but it was not for lack of, I'm just going to abandon what makes Wisconsin good at football. And Wisconsin clearly is not better without him right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think Paul Christ would be a really interesting name at Iowa. The other name, he probably won't be around at the time, or open at the time that whenever Iowa comes open. Yeah, go for it.
Lincoln Riley, natural fit. I'm joking.
Yeah, clearly. No, Pat Fitzgerald. I think Pat Fitzgerald would do really well at Iowa too.
Yeah, but that's a good one too, because that's such a specific program that he made to his, and with less academic stuff to go through.
He did, but he did it the exact way you have to win at Iowa.
Yeah,
those Northwestern teams were not gunslinging the football, and boy, if you can recruit under Northwestern's restrictions, you definitely can recruit at Iowa.
Yeah. All right, interesting. Good takes on that. All right, things that randomly bugged Robert, or Isaiah's going to be filling in on this one.
Yeah. I'm gonna be Robert today. So first of all, to anybody who does not know, I'm a sicko. I bet on games that you should not bet on. Games that involve MAC teams playing on Tuesday nights, and games that involve Phil Longo coaching football. I was on Oregon State -20 in this game, purely as a fade of Phil Longo, and boy, was I feeling good. It was 17-0 Beavers. They're driving. They're back in the red zone. And then the most improbable, most impossible stat-breaking game of football that I've ever witnessed broke out in front of me. I just want you to look at the first tweet here. Sam Houston State was outgained 474 to 157 in yards. And they won. Can we name another time? And not only did they win, they came back from 17-0.
I don't know that's like physically impossible.
But I have listed here exactly how they did it.
See, I didn't see this, but Jesus, you gotta be kidding me with this.
Fumble. Oregon State fumbles, and San Houston State misses the chip shot field goal, so it is still 17-0. Oregon State throws a pick, which then gives them their first touchdown. 17-7, no big deal, whatever. It happens. Oregon State drives the field again.
This is awesome.
Misses the field goal again, or misses a field goal. So now it's 17-7, and this is just weird. They come out the second half. They kick off, and there's offsetting penalties on the kickoff. So they have to re-kick. And on the re-kick, they give up a kick return touchdown. It's now 17-14. They miss another field goal. They turn the ball over on downs, and then San Houston State misses a field goal. So it is still 17-14. At this point, it's obvious they're not going to cover the spread. Whatever, fine. Just get out of here. Don't lose to Phil Long. Oh, you just punted, and you gave up a touchdown on the punt return. And now Sam Houston State leads. They still moved the ball. They got back into the red zone to take the lead. And then on fourth down, they hit the guy right in his chest in the red zone, and he dropped the ball because he was too busy running because he was so wide open to get to the end zone that he did not make the catch. They then threw another interception and then turned the ball over on downs, and that is your Phil Longo victory.
I want to point something out too. And you're probably aware of this. You've got just from the Oregon State side, you've got a missed. So you have a missed field goal, and then you have a kickoff returned against you for a touchdown. You've missed another field goal. You give a punt return for a touchdown.
Yeah, that's how many points.
Yeah, I think you're aware that they actually fired their special teams coach earlier this year too, just to fix this. Wow. Were you aware of this?
I did not know that. No.
Yeah. You might recall. I don't know if you remember. This is on a Friday night game. We all had a good laugh about this when they played Houston.
Yeah,
and Houston had 5 guys block that one field goal to win the game. This is unreal. I've never seen anything like this special teams.
This game has broke. Like, I need somebody from like the Sickos committee to archive this entire game.
Yeah,
this should not. It can't happen. What do the metrics say?
Oh my gosh! Yeah, you know what? I want to check that. I think that's bad on me. I didn't know the yardage was so bad until you told me. So I dropped the ball on that. But yeah, so that is unreal.
Yeah. So this was like for when it was 17-14, and I was sure they weren't going to cover. It bugged me. And then when they were losing, I was like, you know what? I just really want this to happen now.
Yeah. Oh no. That's the most frustrating thing. We've got a big favorite that you bet on. Yeah. And at some point, it's like, you know what? I want you to lose. Yeah, if you're not going to win this one, I don't want you to win. Screw you guys. Yeah. All right. Yeah, that's not the first time that's happened to me. All right, my Jimbo Award. I don't know if I can say this posthumously, but I'll just use the word posthumously. I want to point out that, look, Hugh Freeze was clearly not working out. I didn't know that he was like another Deshaun Foster, and so just get out of the way. Okay, we're actually not that bad. You're blocking everything here, guy. You look at just how bad their offense has been all year. 38 against Vandy, that's their best offensive output of the year. And let's not remember, Freeze is an offensive guy. And just to remind everybody, I put this out in September. This is great reporting by Dan Wolken. I can't believe this. I gotta read this again for those who are driving or doing the dishes here and listening. Freeze told the media in the offseason that this is unbelievable. Derek Nix is the offensive coordinator and is responsible for the game plan, but he'll only call plays on first down. The third down calls will go to the quarterback's coach, Kent Austin. And Freeze generally had responsibility for second down plays, though he was the head coach, also had the right to overrule any of them and call whatever play he wants. Isaiah, I can't believe this didn't work on offense with that.
Yeah, but honestly, when they hired Hugh Freeze, this was my biggest concern, was that, this is a guy who needs to control everything. And sometimes that works, in certain situations, that is what you need. But he not only needs to control everything, he runs a very specific system. Yeah. His system is completely built on every single player being perfect for his offensive system. And so you need to for the first couple of years, you can pass it off as, okay, he hasn't gotten his guys in yet. It takes some time. He's got to recruit. You got to get the transfer portal going, whatever. But I knew he was fried going into this season because I didn't believe in their quarterback play. You could have anybody you wanted, essentially, at a place like Auburn. You have the money to get who you want. Who have your past quarterbacks been? You had a Michigan State reject for a while, and, now it's just I don't know. I can't – him insisting on – Jackson Arnold.
Jackson Arnold.
I can't even tell you who their quarterback was at this point. But, him insisting that Jackson Arnold was the guy who was going to fix the system – let's just say I remember listening to you guys when you did the SEC breakdown, and you were kind of Auburn's like a boom or bust team. You could very easily see them hitting the 7.5, or they might not. You just don't. I was fully on that under, and it was not necessarily because they didn't have the talent to win games, because they do. It was because, to me, I was watching dead program. Hugh Freeze, this wasn't working.
Yeah.
And again, now you have another SEC team too that sold out their entire thing to just hire a very questionable human being as coach. But the coach was not even that good.
Yeah. It just means more. I do want to point out the irony of something. I wrote down your words because it's specifically ironic. Hugh Freeze needs to control everything, and I think that is correct, except he can't control himself. And you can just go from there, just Google.
Exactly.
Yeah, so, all right. I think this is where you have maybe a litany of
I have
people to
two.
point out.
I have two Jimbo awards here. I'm sorry, I could not pick one. But as a Big Ten person, let's start at the top here. I want to give my first Jimbo award to our good friend Scott Frost.
Yes.
Because look, I didn't expect much from UCF this year. I bet they're under 5.5 wins. I expected them to be pretty bad. What I didn't, or maybe I did expect, was that not only were they were bad because they lose games in ways that only Scott Frost can find ways to lose games. Looking back on it, it's actually a miracle that they beat Jacksonville State by 3 in the season opener. Because really, that's a game that Scott Frost would be expected to lose. But I just want to ask what he's doing here, because you're down 3 points, you have the ball at home, you are actually moving the ball decently well against Houston. You got 27 points, so this was not some slop and bad weather or whatever. What does he do? He benches his quarterback, who I couldn't see anything to where it was like, no, unless he was hurt or something. I've seen nothing to suggest that he was hurt or something, but he benches his quarterback and he puts the backup in. The backup does
I want to point out, he was third string at the beginning of the year. I just want to point out, too. Because remember, Cam Fancher.
Right, which we all said that's not going to last.
Oh, yes.
And I think the other guy, I'm trying to remember where the other guy...
Taven Jackson?
He was at Indiana, I think,
yes.
if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Because I remember Indiana fans pointing out like Taven Jackson starting, and he was immediately significantly better. So so he benches Taven Jackson, and again, I will apologize if he ended up being hurt or something and I missed it, but I didn't see anything to say he was. And he puts in this back for Belfort, a backup, and the thing is, not only is he not trying to throw the football, he didn't. He threw one attempt, and it was incomplete. So he's 0 for 1. All they were doing were quarterback runs. Like, quarterback run, there was a penalty. Quarterback run, there was another penalty. And then he fumbles, but he recovers his own fumble. Another quarterback run, and then he throws the pick, and the game is over. And Scott Frost was just sitting here watching this happen and going, yeah, this is how we win this game. Yeah, so that is this not the most classic of Scott Frost? One loss because I decided I needed the onside kick against Northwestern up 10 that we have seen in the past. Who knows? Yeah. Jumbo Award number 1, Scott Frost, you're still doing it. Great to see. Commitment to the bit.
Can I jump in there real quick? Just on that?
Yeah.
I think UCF was favored in that game too, right? I think they were like a field goal favorite. I'm pretty sure.
Let me take a look. It looks like it moved. That it was Houston was a 1-point favorite when it closed.
Wow. Okay, so that moved considerably. It opened, but they opened the favorite though, right? UCF did?
Yeah, they might have. I don't know. I was on Houston money line.
Okay, good for you. Because I was going to say, I almost gave myself a Jimbo for this one for just looking like, what are we doing here? Scott Frost against Willie Fritz. Just, yes, and move on. So, sorry. Yeah, but Scott Frost...
It's where it can go wrong for Scott Frost, it will go wrong, but not for lack of trying.
Uh-huh, yes. All right, sorry to interrupt there.
Yeah, no, that's okay. And my second Jimbo Award, if we are talking about commitment to the bit, part of this is the ACC in general, because this ACC, we have had some great jokes about how bad the ACC has been in some past years. This is a special ACC. Like, this is an ACC where if there was ever a year for us to look at the playoff system and be like, you know what, let's just not give that conference an auto bid.
Oh, it can happen.
Yeah.
It can happen.
No, I think Georgia Tech is going to have the resume at the end of it.
Yes.
Assuming they win the ACC, and they could beat Georgia. They're not a team that's going to just automatically lose to Georgia. But even if they do, they'd have 2 losses, power conference champion. I can say, hey, you didn't need the auto bid. You deserve your bid. But can you imagine if this was like the champion instead was a 5-3 Georgia Tech team or a 3-loss Pittsburgh team or something, right?
You're dancing around this.
Yeah.
There's a team that owns its own destiny here. And they play, their basketball team plays in Cameron. Yeah, an 8-4 ACC champ, just if they, or 9-4 if they actually beat Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
They might get nosed out.
Yeah. I'm just like, this is a special kind of bad ACC. And yet, with all of this NFL talent, with all of this, like, another incredible start where you look unbeatable, Miami is squarely out of this hunt.
Yeah.
They're out of the ACC hunt. Virginia could play for an ACC championship before Miami does. I don't know how this keeps happening. And I don't even look at this. Isn't even a year where he like just did something stupid at the end of the game and they lost the game. Like they just flat out just messed up.
Yeah.
Um,
yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. And then you can keep that little again to quantify this. The University of Connecticut, not the program run by either Dan Hurley or Gino, has 3 football wins against the AC. Florida since 2024, and Florida State has 2.
Yes, congratulations.
This is where
to
we
them.
are.
Yes. That is really well done.
Of people who are mad that they can't get ESPN through their YouTube TV, I do not believe we are missing anything with this conference.
Yes, consider yourself lucky. Yeah, let me just ask you this: what I asked Robert, and I just don't know if there's an answer here. You're stuck with Mario. He's got this huge contract, and we're not sure what it was because it's a private school, sounding very much like my own school. You've got no more levers to push here. What can you do?
No, and the problem too is it's like you don't even have. I almost feel worse about this year's Miami team than like last year or the year before, because I think we mentioned it with Washington, right? Like when a team loses games because of doing dumb stuff late or something stupid happens, something dumb happens, right? Those are often things that can actually be easily corrected, right? You look yourself in the mirror, you say, look, I made a dumb decision. I need to be a little bit better, and you move on. This year, what is the course correction here? You just flat out underperformed in a bad conference. Like, I don't know how you fix that. And I'm not falling for this again. If they go and win the ACC next year, that's fine. That's great. Congratulations. I'm not betting on them. I'm not putting any stock into this program next year. I can't do it. Like, if the models and everything clearly say that the over win total is a play, I'm just not going to play it. And I don't know what the solution is. It feels like this is like endgame James Franklin, but even worse because at least until this year, James Franklin didn't lose to Stanford.
I don't know. I don't see how it gets any better. And it's year 4 because he's 4 years in, and I think he got a 10-year contract. Maybe like in 5 more years, like every other good coach retires, and there's no good coaches left.
Yeah, it feels like this is also going to be like a mutual part, and he's going to have to leave on his own because they're not going to pony up like with the amount of money.
He's going to walk away from, what does he make, $10 million a year? We don't know because it's a private contract.
I'm not giving that up if I'm him. Like, I don't care if the fans hate me, whatever.
Yeah,
and it's private, and it's a private school, so you don't have to deal with the nonsense that Florida and Florida State are dealing with.
Yeah. No, it's that. God, that was quite a build up there. Just say yep, and Miami's on the outside. I like that. Well done. All right, couple of things noted for future reference here. Once again, the Arizona defense holding Kansas to 20, which is really good. Kansas got 5.2 yards per play, well below their seed at an average of 5.9. Duck and I talked about this on one of the Island Times. Arizona's defensive coordinator, and I've talked about this with Robert too. Defensive coordinator Danny Gonzalez, he's a really good DC. He was, when San Diego State was at its absolute best as a defensive team under Rocky Long, that was his guy on defense. I want to see if some sharp coach brings in Danny Gonzalez with all the openings too. I think that he's somewhere else next year. Also want to point out, look, LSU kept it close here, 20-7. Clearly the takeaway here is their limitations are on offense. It ain't working. I wasn't really a big believer in Nussmeier going into the season. I definitely didn't see him as a first round pick. Now, that's not really my thing, but I didn't think he was good enough to even deserve that kind of talk. But the defense holding Alabama to 5.5 yards per play is something really to behold. And I bring that up because there's a tendency, I'm as guilty as anyone, of just overlook these teams that have fired the coach and just saying, okay, after a while it's just going to be, because I've lived this so much as a USC fan. About every 3 years we do this. All right, they're going to mail it in. I think that these players really like Frank Wilson, the interim, and the strength is on the defense, as we saw. Doing that to Alabama at home, that's something to really be said. You've got one of the Heisman favorites there, and Ty Simpson, a really good offense. I really want to see. I'll put this. Keep in mind for LSU playing at Oklahoma to wrap up the regular season, because let's not forget just how bad Oklahoma's been struggling on offense since Mateer came back, and just clip and save on that one.
I think there's a lot of benefit in looking at programs and how they respond to various forms of adversity. And one of those forms of adversity is the coach gets fired, because especially maybe LSU is a little bit of an exception here, because as I've mentioned before, this is certainly a place where you could argue, oh, it actually got better because like the morale got better because Brian Kelly is no longer there. But again, it's real easy, especially for college kids, right? Like, these guys had a lot of expectations going into the season, and that's all gone, right? That's tough. That's really tough. You could mail it in on the season. Hey, they're still playing out there. Now they're outmatched. Going into Tuscaloosa, they were outmatched, and you knew that. But the defensive showing is admirable. And even that they didn't really, I was never watching that game and saying, you know what, oh, this is a point where Alabama's in serious trouble here. This is not, to me, a team where you can just count them out for the rest of the year and say, yeah, the coach is fired. So, yeah, that Oklahoma game, that'll be an interesting game to watch, because I do want to see what this LSU team puts together now that the Brian Kelly thing is off their back, and then they can just, and obviously all the expectations are now off their back. They can just play for the rest of the season. Yeah, and the first game, too, is I think people want to sleep a little bit on Kansas, because they're not last year's Kansas, right? They're not one of these like Leopold, like really flashy, really dangerous Kansas teams, but they are a well-coached program, and they're a team that they don't beat themselves. They don't just give away games anymore like the old Kansas kind of does. Again, it's that culture shift, right? And so I think it's really quite impressive when a team can to go in there and really just show a really nice, solid, fundamental heavy. Again, you're not going to beat yourselves, so we're not going to beat ourselves, right? We're just going to play. We're going to have the better team win the football game. Arizona, low key, real interesting program.
Yeah, I agree. Going back to that LSU to Oklahoma game, I was just looking this up. That is the day after Nebraska, Iowa, just for like serious vibes of like just part two. That's almost like the sequel, I guess. Going to be a lot of that in there. All right, Isaiah, thank you for getting us through the Week 11 preview. Everyone, thank you for joining us. We will be back shortly with our Week 12 preview, and we will talk to you then. Thank you so much.